The courtroom smelled faintly of coffee, paper, and tension. Reporters filled every bench, their cameras poised, ready to turn another fallen soldier into tomorrow's scandal. The clock above the judge's bench ticked mercilessly loud, each second pushing Sergeant Jack Reynolds closer to the kind of judgment he'd never imagined facing. He wasn't wearing his uniform now, just a plain gray shirt and slacks. But his posture, even in handcuffs, still carried that marine stiffness, that quiet dignity. The silver dog tags hidden under his shirt pressed cold against his chest, the only thing that still felt like part of him. 2 officers flanked him, young, cocky, their hands resting casually near their holsters. They didn't know who he was. Or maybe they did, but it didn't matter anymore. To them, he was just another defendant. Defendant Reynolds, the bailiff called. Step forward. Jack took a deep breath, eyes fixed straight ahead. He didn't flinch when the cuffs tugged at his wrists. He'd been bound before, by ropes in the desert, by fear in his nightmares, by silence when no one wanted to hear what war really did to a man. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair, scanned his file. Sergeant Reynolds, she began, her tone formal, detached. You stand accused of discharging an unlicensed firearm in a residential area and causing injury to 2 civilians. How do you plead? His lawyer, a public defender barely out of college, stood beside him. Your Honor, we plead not guilty. My client acted in defense of. Defense, the prosecutor cut in sharply. He's not a law enforcement officer. He's a civilian now. He took matters into his own hands. The room buzzed with whispers. Someone in the back muttered, typical military hothead. Another voice hissed, thought they were heroes, guess not. Jack said nothing. His jaw tightened, his eyes cold. He'd seen faces like these before, faces that didn't understand the choices soldiers make when every second decides who lives or dies. The mission had been simple that night. Stop a gang from kidnapping a 12-year-old girl in his neighborhood. The cops were 10 minutes away. Jack didn't have 10 minutes. 1 shot. 1 clean shot. No child harmed. But now, here he was, the man who'd spent half his life defending others, standing trial for it. The prosecutor's voice droned on. Your Honor, the defendant's military background is precisely why he should be held to a higher standard. Discipline. Control. He knew better. Jack's lawyer tried again, he acted out of instinct, out of duty. Duty? The prosecutor scoffed. To whom? The law doesn't answer to military instincts. The judge raised her hand, silencing them both. Enough. I will hear all evidence before passing judgment. Jack finally spoke, his voice low but steady. Ma'am, I didn't shoot to kill. I shot to save. The prosecutor leaned forward, smiling coldly. And who appointed you savior, Sergeant? The courtroom went silent. Jack met his eyes and replied, no one. But when you've watched innocent people die because you waited for orders, you learn not to. For a heartbeat, the entire room froze. Even the judge paused, just for a second. The bailiff shifted uneasily. The prosecutor swallowed hard but forced himself to move on, pretending the words hadn't landed. Outside the courtroom, rain began to fall, heavy, relentless. The kind that blurs everything behind glass. Jack turned slightly, scanning the rows behind him. Among the journalists, lawyers, and curious strangers, he saw one old man sitting quietly in the back. A Marine Corps pin on his jacket. The man gave a faint nod. Jack returned it, the smallest flicker of acknowledgement between 2 soldiers who didn't need words. But he didn't know that this nod, this quiet witness, would change everything. Because that man had just sent a message to someone powerful, someone who knew the name Jack Reynolds all too well. And at that very moment, miles away in a military office, a phone rang. The courtroom had gone into recess, but the tension clung to the air like smoke after a gunfight. People rose from their benches in murmuring clusters, journalists typing furiously, lawyers whispering over documents, curious onlookers debating whether the Marine sniper was a hero or a danger. Jack Reynolds sat alone at the defendant's table, wrists still cuffed to the chain looped through the chair. His lawyer had stepped outside to make a call, leaving him in uneasy silence. The guards near the door laughed quietly, one of them pointing toward Jack. "Guy thinks he's still in Fallujah or something," one said. "Probably can't tell the difference between war and real life." The other smirked. "Guess he finally found out this isn't a movie." Jack didn't look at them. He kept his gaze on the floor, watching a faint trail of dust move across the tile as the air conditioner hummed overhead. He'd learned long ago not to answer ignorance. Not in the field, not here. Then, from the back of the courtroom, a voice spoke softly but firmly. "Show some respect, son." The younger officer turned. An older man, mid-60s, gray hair, upright posture, a Marine Corps lapel pin gleaming under the dull courtroom lights, stared him down. His voice carried quiet authority. "You ever put on a uniform?" The guard shook his head. "No, sir." "Then don't talk about what you don't understand." For a moment, the room went silent again. The older man, Colonel David Monroe, retired, walked down the aisle and took a seat closer to Jack. His eyes studied the younger Marine's face. He'd seen that expression before, that still, hard look of a soldier being judged by a world that had forgotten his sacrifice. "Reynolds," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I'll be damned. Ghost eye." Jack lifted his head slightly, his brow furrowing. "Sir?" Monroe smiled faintly. "You probably don't remember me. 2nd Battalion, Ramadi. You covered our flank during Operation Steel Rain. You saved 20 of my men. They said you vanished after the ambush." Jack looked down again. "Didn't vanish, sir. Just, stopped being useful." The words hit Monroe like a punch. He'd heard that tone before, the quiet resignation of warriors who came home only to be abandoned by the country they served. Monroe leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You know they're calling you a vigilante?" Jack gave a humorless smile. "They can call me whatever they want." Monroe stared at him a moment longer. Then, pulling out his phone, he scrolled through old contacts until he found a name he hadn't dialed in years. He hesitated, then pressed call. A deep voice answered almost immediately. "General Donovan speaking." Monroe lowered